What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Wake and Jake College Football Show. This is a Week 7 recap. We are officially halfway through the season. Every team has now played 6 games, which they are now officially halfway through the season. And nothing too crazy happened this week, and there was a lot of wins that were just concerning wins for teams. There was not a lot of upsets, but there was some top teams that won their games, but did not look pretty. So that is the theme of today's show, is just ugly, ugly wins, which for some teams they were better than others. Other teams, these ugly wins are concerning. So yeah, let's get right into it. But before we do that, let's get a little high. All right, we'll start with the Friday night games. I was so off on both of these games. Just couldn't be further from the truth. So we'll start with Northwestern and Maryland. Northwestern may have found their offense. I said it before the game that they were coming off of technically their best offensive performance of the season. Is that a trend for the rest of the year? And through these last 2 games, I guess it could be. Northwestern does score 37 fucking points. No one saw that coming from Northwestern, and Maryland only dropped 10. I know the Northwestern defense is decent, but I figured Maryland would score more than 10 points. Before the game, when I previewed this game, I gave Mike Loxley's stat or record against the Big Ten since he took over the team, and we'll actually get into that a little bit later. But if you just look at Maryland in general, if you just look at their overall record since joining the Big Ten in 2014, it's not pretty. In August and September, they are 32-10. Absolute juggernauts, just cannot be beat. Which, if you look at how the Big Ten kind of rolls out their schedule, they play all of their non-conference games in August and September, and usually they play easier teams to win against. So 32-10 in August and September, that's great, fantastic. Love to see it. You hope your record's going to be that. October, they are 12-25. And in November and December, they are 12-32. What the fuck is that? That is terrible. You're 24-57 in October through December. That is just awful. We always make the joke every year, look at Maryland first half of the season versus the second half. It's night and day difference, yada, yada, yada. But this has been the trend since they joined the Big Ten. It's not just a Mike Loxley, joke that we make. It's Maryland as a whole. From now on, if I say Maryland is going to win a game and it's not August or September, then you better fade me and tell me I'm wrong. And if I have a bet that Maryland is going to win and it's not August or September, you better fade me, because they just do not win in October, November, December. Just cannot do it since joining the Big Ten. Just not built for it. Arizona State 27, Utah 19. I said if Cam Rising doesn't play, that it's going to be tough for them to win. But guess what? Cam Rising played, and they still had a tough time winning, and they actually didn't win, but they were struggling. This is going to come as no shock to anybody, but Cam Rising did get hurt again. It did look like he may have tweaked that ankle a little bit. He wasn't quite getting... Now, granted, he also hurt his finger on his throwing hand, so not getting enough zip on the ball, but then also throwing the balls low because it didn't look like he was able to put a lot of pressure on his... It was weird. It was not a great game for Cam Rising. 3 interceptions. I'm not saying Arizona State's is going to be world beaters this year or win the Big 12 or anything like that. But I really like Kenny Dillingham, and I really like the future for Arizona State. And Cam Skattebo, great. He is fantastic. Just teams get so sick of tackling him by the end of the game. And I like Arizona State. Not necessarily this year, but I like them for next year. I like Kenny Dillingham. I'm very high on him. Bama 27. South Carolina 25. This was one of the 2, there was only 2 good games during the noon slate. This was one of them. You could argue this was one of the best games of the day. I don't think it was. We'll get into those later. But Kalen DeBoer, he is on thin ice with Alabama fans. I'm not saying that he's going to get fired or anything like that because of how they've been playing, but Alabama fans are irate. They are pissed, which I think is so funny. Bama's lucky to have won this one. It had no reason to be this close. Bama was a 3-touchdown favorite in this game. And I'm not saying that I wasn't doing this before, but I think I need to start doing it a little more. I need to start putting some more respect on South Carolina's defensive line. I knew they were good, and that defensive line is the whole reason that I thought they would be that they would play Ole Miss a lot closer, last week. Just because Ole Miss, as we'll get into later, struggles to protect the quarterback against a good defensive line. I figured, close game. Wasn't the case. It's not that they didn't get pressure on Ole Miss. Ole Miss was able to come away with a very easy win in that one. So I thought, well, okay, maybe South Carolina's defensive line is not quite as good as I thought. Maybe they are just a little step back. And nope, they're good. They're very good. They made Alabama's life hell. Like I said they were going to play Ole Miss closer the week before. I was just a week late or early on that one. It turns out it was just Bama. If Spencer Rattler, if he might have actually still had a year of eligibility, if I'm thinking correctly. If he was your quarterback this year, South Carolina, you guys would have won that game, just saying. I think quarterback is the biggest reason you did not win. Now, that touchdown by Nick Harbour to bring it to 25 points, insane. Lenora Sellers gets rushed on a throw on the 2-point conversion, overshoots a wide open receiver. Tough, very tough. You recover the onside kick, which is nearly impossible to do, and just couldn't get anything close to getting into field goal range. And then Lenora Sellers just throws up an absolute terrible ball, just hoping for a prayer. Wasn't even anywhere close to the receiver. Easy interception. If Spencer Rattler was still your quarterback, South Carolina, you would have won that game. It's unfortunate. It would have been so funny. I would have loved every second of it, but it is what it is. Sucks. Wisconsin at Rutgers. I could not have been more wrong about a game than this one. I was wrong about the Friday night games. I was wrong about Alabama, South Carolina. I was wrong about, another game coming up here, but I think this one was the one I was the most wrong about. I figured this would be a Rutgers 21-17, 24-20 win, something like that. Just a gross defensive-minded game with a couple scores maybe late. Wrong. Wisconsin 42, Rutgers 7. Ethan Kaliakmanis, the same old story. We've heard this story before. We've seen it. He was not great. 12 of 32 for 103 yards and 1 interception. But his receivers were worse. Again, like I said, we've seen this before. The throw is not great. It's not a perfect throw. The receiver does have to go behind him a little bit, go up a little higher than he should to catch it. But it's still a very catchable ball. The receiver's not getting hit. The receiver's doesn't have a DB who's all over him trying to knock it away. No, the receiver has no one touching him or is going to be touching him, and they just dropped the easy catches. Catches that they should make if they are worth a shit. It was just rough. Now, like I said, it's not like it was a perfect throw from Ethan, but you should not need a perfect throw to catch it. If it hits you right in the hands, I mean, come on. There was a couple that they just went right through their hands, and you can't do that. The offense needs help. You can't just rely on Kyle Monangai. I mean, defenses are just going to sell out to stop him because, the receivers aren't even going to catch the ball even if they're wide open. So let's just sell out and stop Monangai. They showed the stat the first half where Rutgers has only scored once in their past 10 trips into opponent territory, going even into last week against Nebraska. I don't remember how much worse that stat ended up getting because they only did come away with 7 points. And when they did say this, Rutgers was driving into Wisconsin territory and then had a field goal blocked. So that stat might have gotten a lot worse. The offense just needs so much help. And on Wisconsin's side, I knew that when Tyler Van Dyke went down, there were some people who said, the competition was closer than people realize. They're not going to be too upset having Braden Locke be the quarterback. You heard those rumors going around. But it all now that he hasn't played great, but he played pretty good this weekend. Ches Malusi leaves the team, gets injured, steps away from the team. People are like, "Ooh, that's kind of a big hit. That's our running back." Yada yada. I don't think they miss him. Tawi Walker, I think I'm saying his name right. He made Rutgers look stupid. 24 carries, 198 yards, 3 touchdowns, and it's not like he just had been playing like shit before and then blew up. He's been playing pretty good the last couple weeks. Wisconsin might have found something. They may have been starting the wrong quarterback, and Ches Malusi leaving the team. You don't root for injuries, and you never hope a guy gets injured, but it might be a blessing in disguise. Wisconsin might be turning it around, which makes me a little nervous for that Gopher game coming up. If Wisconsin gets on a roll, I don't love that. But overall, ugly game for Rutgers. Preview for the dead list, Rutgers might be on dead watch, unless they can get that offense turned around. Again, another game that I was just so off on. Iowa 40, Washington 16. I thought Washington was going to cover. I thought they were going to win. I even sprinkled a little on Washington money line. So wrong. Iowa may win out the rest of the season, which is so fucking annoying. They play Michigan State, easy win, or has the potential to be an easy win. Northwestern, very winnable. Wisconsin, winnable. I'm not going to say very winnable. It's winnable. UCLA, very winnable. Maryland, very winnable. And Nebraska, that is also very winnable. If Iowa wins out, I'm going to be so upset. Now, if Oregon wins out and Ohio State wins out, we'll get into that game later. They would still play for the Big Ten championship. But the fact that Iowa could finish the season with just two losses would be unreal. Washington finally kind of started to look like the team I thought they'd be in the Big Ten. They got just absolutely bullied along the line of scrimmage. And honestly, this game was a lot closer in the first half. Washington just had a very rough second half. Iowa is very good at making adjustments at halftime. Maybe not in the Iowa State game, but they are pretty good at making adjustments at halftime. Washington's drives in the second half, interception, turnover on downs, turnover on downs, turnover on downs. Just can't convert on fourth down, and then they scored a garbage time touchdown. It was already 40-10. Game was over, and they scored a touchdown. And every single meaningful drive of Iowa in the second half, they scored. Their offense just found a groove, scored on every single drive except the final one, which they didn't need to score, obviously. I couldn't have been more wrong on this game, but Washington is starting to look like the team I thought they would be. Clemson, 49, Wake Forest, 14. I mean, Tyler from Spartanburg has got to be on top of the world. Since he lit a fire under Dabo's ass last year, Clemson has only lost once, and it was to Georgia at the beginning of the season. Tyler from Spartanburg, good for you. They showed the stat in this game that since October 31st of last year, before that Dabo was 4-4. Since then, like 9-1 or 10-1 or whatever. What they failed to mention is that was also the week that Tyler from Spartanburg got Dabo pissed, and had him just going on a rant. And since then, Clemson has just been unstoppable. This offense is rolling. The defense is clicking. Watch out for Clemson. And also, Wake Forest is a very bad team. Georgia Tech 41, UNC 34. This was the only other good game of the noon slate. Georgia Tech, such a weird team. They always seem to play up or down to their competition. But they're a very fun team to watch. Because they play up and down, it's kind of a roller coaster game every time. The games are usually close, and Georgia Tech is 4-2 this year. I mean, they're winning. Maybe they might have played more than, I don't know. Anyways, Georgia Tech's pretty good. But the heart and soul of this team is Haynes King, and you can tell because as soon as now if they lose a game, sometimes it is at his hands, but they live or die by him. They really do. Uh, and as soon as he was out of this game, all the momentum shifted. It was weird. North Carolina, just so sad. They were down 10 late in the game. They come back. They score a touchdown. 44 seconds left in the game. You think, okay, Georgia Tech's just going to hand off the ball. They've only thrown it once since Haynes King left the game. Run the ball, get to overtime, win it in overtime. And Georgia Tech went 75 yards in 2 plays and won the game. It's North Carolina's dead. That's all it is. They're dead. They're just that. I think this was their last rally. Let's get it. If we win this game, okay, there's hope. But they lost this game. I think they're just dead the rest of the year. But Haynes King, if he's out for a while, then this is not good for Georgia Tech. I don't like them moving forward the rest of the season. But if he is able to come back and is healthy, he's not hurting a little bit, hobbling, whatever. Watch out for Georgia Tech the rest of the season. Afternoon games. Red River Shootout. Texas 34, Oklahoma 3. I told you, this was one of the games that I was spot on with. I said it was going to be a slow start. Texas was going to start slow. And that Oklahoma's offense is just not talented enough to go full game against Texas, and that was proven. Now, there was like a 2-minute stretch when this game really got fucked for Oklahoma. Texas had just scored a touchdown to go up 14-3. They get the ball back, turn the ball over almost immediately. Texas goes down, scores another touchdown. Oklahoma gets the ball back, turns the ball over almost immediately. They luck out because Texas missed a field goal, but just a rough. You just go down 2 scores. You're trying to get back into it, and you just fuck up and go down even further. Oklahoma's bad. Their defense is good. I feel like they might have kind of given up in that second half because the game's over. Their offense is not going to be able to do shit. Texas is really good, guys. Texas is really fucking good. They are the number 1 team in the nation, without a doubt. As we'll get into later with Ohio State, they are number 1, and they will probably remain that, although they do play Georgia. So that could be interesting, but Texas is really fucking good, guys. Oklahoma, you guys are done for. You guys are dead. 69 yards. Hold on. Final drive of the game, Oklahoma had 69 yards on their final drive of the game. And they had 38 total yards the second half prior to that final drive. They had like 4 or 5 drives before that final one, and they got 38 total yards. You guys are wasting a good defense with a shitty offense. I don't know how well this goes for Brent Venables. I think he is going to be on the hot seat going into next year, which is crazy to think about, but he might be on the hot seat. They really have some things to figure out on that offense moving forward. Penn State 33, USC 30, overtime loss for USC at home. Yikes USC and yikes Penn State, but more yikes towards USC. That was a kind of lucky, ugly win for Penn State, but honestly, you kind of came away feeling good for Penn State moving forward, whereas, USC, what a terrible choke. I don't know where you go from here, if I'm going to be honest. USC was up 20-6 at half, and they lost 33-30 in overtime. That's just not good. And like I said, I think this game is way worse for USC than it is for Penn State. Like I said, I didn't come away, yes, this was not a great win for Penn State, but I didn't come away feeling nearly as uncertain for their future as I did with like other teams, Bama, Tennessee. We'll get into that one later. Pitt, we'll get into that one soon. Drew Aller threw it for nearly 400 yards, but he also threw 3 interceptions, and USC could not capitalize on that. So shout out to Penn State. People will say this is concerning, and that you're lucky to win, but I look at it as a boost of confidence. You were on the road, down 2 scores at half, and came back and battled and won in overtime. USC may be overrated. I'm on that train. I'm on the USC is overrated train, and this loss just makes it go even faster and harder. But this was a good win for Penn State. Like I said, one of the few games I came away with, that was an ugly win, but I don't feel bad about it. Pitt 17, Cal 15. Just, whoa, what the hell was this? Cal has one of the worst pass defenses in the country, and they shut down Pitt's passing game. And as you know, Pitt has one of the best passing attacks in the country, and they're going up against the worst pass defense, or one, not the worst, but one of the worst, and they just absolutely shit the bed. Eli Holsting was 14 of 28 for 133 yards and one interception. Pitt's defense, though, shout out to them for making life hell for Mendoza. He still was 27 for 37, 272 and a touchdown. That's actually pretty good. Not great for Pitt on that, but they also don't have a good pass defense either. But he was sacked 6 times, and Pitt had 11 tackles for loss. That's a lot. And Cal's kicker, just unfortunate. College kickers can't trust him, can't bet on him. 150 left in the game, 40-yarder, just straight on. All you have to do is just kick it straight, and absolutely shanked it. Just an ugly, wobbly, lame duck kick that just was low and ugly. Now, snap was high. I don't know if the hold was great, so maybe there's some reason for it, but tough break for Cal. They had the ball for nearly double the time of possession, and they won the turnover battle. But a missed field goal, tons of penalties. It was too much for them to overcome, and also they couldn't keep their quarterback upright. This was not a good win for Pitt. Extremely lucky. They are extremely lucky to be undefeated. They were outplayed all over this game, except on the defensive line for them, and they still won. So good for them, I guess, but that makes me a little concerned for the rest of the season for them. Illinois 50, Purdue 49. What the fuck? Another just ugly, lucky win by a team this weekend. And like I said, that seems to be the theme this week, just ugly wins. Purdue is one of the worst teams in the country, been saying that. And that's not just an opinion, that's fact. And Illinois is not a bad team. I'm not saying that they're great, but they're not bad. And Illinois was up 27-3 early-ish in the third quarter, and they needed a field goal as time expired to force overtime to even have a chance to win this game. All-time collapse by Illinois. They were able to eke out the win still, but it could have been bad. There was absolutely no defense played in this game. Hudson Card was out, so I'm going to give Illinois a little bit of a break on that one because they were playing against a quarterback they knew not much about. Redshirt freshman Ryan Brown came in, and he was amazing. Over 400 yards of total offense and 3 touchdowns. Did not see that coming from Purdue. If there was just, like I said, a new quarterback, Illinois had not seen him. Nobody had fucking seen this guy. There's very, very few people can actually say they've seen Ryan Brown play, I'm sure, because he played very little last year. He was amazing, but if there was one positive you could take away from Illinois, it's you won and your offense looked amazing. Your defense obviously needs help, but I'm going to give you a slight break because you're playing a quarterback you knew nothing about. Well, you didn't have much film on, let's just put it that way. But your offense still looked amazing, which they should have against this Purdue defense. But defense might need to look in the mirror this week and fix some things. Louisville 24. Virginia 20. Thank God Louisville won, so I don't have to go and put respect on Virginia's name. I was not looking forward to that. I really did not want to do it, and now I don't have to. I almost had to, but I don't have to because Louisville was up 17-7 midway through the third quarter, and then Virginia came and took a 20-17 lead midway early-ish in the fourth quarter. But Louisville took them a minute to get that lead back, just under 2 minutes, and when they scored that touchdown, they were able to hold on for the win. But neither team looked particularly good, which for Virginia, that's whatever. I don't want to put respect on their name anyway, so they should look bad. But that's not looking good for Louisville. I don't think that bodes well for them the rest of the season. They just have not looked good the last couple weeks. They lost that game against Notre Dame, which kind of their fault, turning the ball over. Lost against SMU, which SMU is good, but and then almost losing to Virginia. Something's going on at Louisville, and it's not looking good the rest of the season. All right, let's get into the evening games, but let's take a quick break. All right, let's get into the evening games. We'll start with potentially the game of the day or night, depending on how you want to look at it. Oregon 32, Ohio State 31. I did not think Oregon was going to win this game. Goodness, Oregon has had some injuries on the offensive line before the season started. So I figured, Ohio State's defensive line, that was going to be where Ohio State was going to win this game. They got enough talent on there. They got a lot of high draft picks, or potential high draft picks, I should say. We don't actually know yet. Going to overpower that Oregon offensive line and win the game for them. Instead, they produced 0 sacks and 2 tackles for loss. Not good for a defensive line that's supposed to have a ton of high draft picks. Both defenses got absolutely picked apart, by the way. Now, Oregon seemed to have the better run defense because take away one 53-yard run by Henderson, and Ohio State could not run the ball at all. But both teams were able to throw the ball at will. Just absolutely insane. Just no stopping them. This is a very good win for Oregon. Like I said before the season, coming in, I thought Oregon was going to be the one Pac-12 team that did not struggle transitioning into the Big Ten. And so far that seems to be correct because Oregon is currently 6-0, and the other 3 former Pac-12 teams are a combined 8-11, which you may be like, that's not so terrible. Only one of them actually has a winning record, and that is Washington at 4-3. So Oregon's a very good team. We knew that going into the season. They struggled the first 2 games of the season, but they might be a little better than we thought. More than likely, this is going to be a rematch, and I cannot wait for that. Ohio State does still have to beat Penn State and Michigan. Penn State might be a little more difficult than Michigan seems to be at the moment, but that you can never rule out Michigan in that rivalry. Oregon, on the other hand, they only have Illinois and then Michigan as well as its hardest remaining games. Oregon does seem to have a little bit of an easy schedule moving forward, but I think that this is going to be a rematch for the Big Ten Championship, and I cannot wait. Tennessee 23, Florida 17 in overtime. Tennessee is so fucking lucky to have won this game. Lot of interesting decisions by Billy Napier in this one. I was right when I said that Tennessee wanted to establish the run game and run it down the Gators' throats, throw the ball a little less with Nico if you didn't have to, and that's exactly what they tried to do, and they sucked at it. The run game was just it wasn't great. They had good moments in the run game, but there was a lot of drives where they just could not get anything going, and there were some questionable play calls as well. 3rd and 15 and you run the ball. What are you doing? That's a PJ Fleck move. But the passing game was worse. Nico was not good. Now, it's not all his fault. I'm going to give... Nico did not look good last week. Now, when he didn't look good last week, that was because Nico was just sucking. He was off. He just wasn't looking good. This week, I don't know how much it was his fault. The offensive line is very bad. They are not good. And they eventually had to, once they kind of started to have some success in the running game, they started running a lot of play action and rolling Nico out, which got him away from the pass rush. Now, you got to work on a little bit on that holding penalties, but once they started to roll Nico outside the pocket, they did start to have a little more success in the passing game, but defensively, Tennessee they were good, don't get me wrong, they were good. They were playing a very bend, don't break defense, but they had some moments that left you head scratching. I will say one thing that really helped this defense was Graham Mertz getting injured. Once that happened, momentum shifted pretty much. The defensive line was getting penetration. They were getting into the backfield. They just could not quite get to the running backs in time. They were just a step short, it felt like, every time, could not quite get a hand on them. Props to Florida. They played a good game, but a few errors by Billy Napier. The fourth and one run that the jet sweep. Don't love that play call. Just run it right up the middle. It's 4th and 1. But yeah, this was a very bend don't break defensive effort because they allowed a lot of throws to be made, just short throws, nothing crazy. Behind the line of scrimmage, you can't really help that one, but a lot of little throws over the middle and just struggled, but they didn't let Florida capitalize. Now, again, some of that was their own faults. They did get the ball at the 1-yard line, ran a QB sneak, and they fumbled. Tennessee recovered. Very lucky for that one. They also, terrible clock management at the end of the first half, trying to rush the field goal unit onto the field to kick a field goal, and they had 12 men in the field. And field goal doesn't count, 10-second runoff. They don't get those 3 points going into halftime. But like I said, Graham Mertz getting hurt, that helped because Lagway comes in and he wasn't great. He was not great. He did throw an interception, but momentum definitely flipped to Tennessee's favor at that point. Late in the game, Florida does get a great punt return, and they had already been burned on a punt return earlier by Florida. I don't know why they kicked it right to them, but they did. Got them down to about the 30-yard line or so, and with 30 seconds left, Lagway does throw a beautiful ball right over the middle for a touchdown. But at that point, momentum was still kind of on Tennessee's side. Yes, you had just scored with 30 seconds left to go down 1. Momentum still with Tennessee. And you're in Knoxville. It's not going to be the necessarily easiest place to play in overtime. Napier started with the field goal unit to kick the extra point, decided to switch, brought out the offense to go for 2. Tennessee calls a timeout, and then decided to settle for an extra point. You got to go for 2 there. You cannot go to overtime at Neyland. You just couldn't do it. And they settled, and they go to overtime, and they just got absolutely bodied. Ended up having to settle for a field goal, missed it, but didn't matter because Tennessee just ran that ball just right at Florida and just marched it right into the end zone. Concerning for Tennessee, yes, they do have a lot of things that they need to fix. The defense has some issues. They allowed a lot of throws to be made when Graham Mertz was in the game, and that offensive line is worse than we thought. I don't think Nico was that bad. Yes, his stats aren't great, and he did make some throws that were not great either, but I don't think he played that bad. I really don't. I think it was more on the offensive line. Florida is still a disaster. I don't think they're going to fire Billy Napier after this game. Yes, he made some poor choices, but it's not like they were home and favored to win this game. Let's just put it that way. So Florida is still a disaster. Tennessee has got some issues they need to get figured out, but this will be interesting. So you got Bama and Tennessee, both teams who are struggling at the moment, facing each other next week. So which team is going to prevail in that one? This was probably the game of the night. LSU 29, Ole Miss 26 in overtime. I knew it. I'm just going to say it right there. I knew it. I told you. This was going to be a scary game for Ole Miss. Now, LSU at night, it's scary. I said it. For any team, it doesn't matter if you're Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. You're going into LSU at night. That's a scary game. LSU got after Jackson Dart. 6 sacks, and they also had 9 tackles for loss. Just that Ole Miss offensive line is a concern going forward. It was my concern going into this game. It was my concern last week against South Carolina. And it proved to be the deciding factor in this game, if you ask my opinion. And also, on the other hand, Ole Miss, who has been great at getting after the quarterback, had 0 sacks and 3 tackles for loss. LSU won the game in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Offensively and defensively, they just dominated this game. This offensive line is going to be the Achilles heel of Ole Miss the rest of the season. I was on the overrated train for Ole Miss last year. I wrote it all season long, and they just kept proving me wrong, and it looks like I was just a year early. I was just a year early on the overrated train. They got some shit to figure out. LSU, on the other hand, has gotten a lot of shit all season, but they are currently sitting at 5-1. maybe it's time we start putting a little more respect on LSU and Brian Kelly, even with those ugly wins early in the season and that bad loss to USC. Iowa State 28, West Virginia 16. Guys, watch out. Iowa State is 6-0. They're good. They're pretty good. They may have a shot at the Big 12 championship at this rate. Kansas shit in the bed. Oklahoma State shit in the bed. Utah kind of shit in the bed. They have a real shot at this. And I said this game, when I previewed it, would be similar to the Penn State-West Virginia game, and score-wise, it definitely was. But West Virginia definitely played better offensively in this game than they did in that Penn State game. Now, they did still turn the ball over twice, which absolutely screwed them over. Before those back-to-back interceptions, and it was consecutive drives that they did that, the score was Iowa State 14, West Virginia 10. They were still very much in this game. It was a close game, probably closer than Iowa State wanted. And they throw back-to-back interceptions, and Iowa State converted those interceptions or those turnovers into points. And all of a sudden, they were up 28-10, and it was too late for West Virginia to do anything. Credit to Iowa State. You get those interceptions, and the drives after those interceptions took a combined 11 plus minutes to complete, and they ended with touchdowns. Took so much time off the clock. West Virginia did not have the ball for very much in that second half, and those two drives killed them. It really did. Those two interceptions lost the game for them. It's hard. It's hard you can point to just one instance where the game was lost, but it really was. When those two interceptions were thrown, it was those two points in the game where West Virginia just lost it. And obviously, we already knew their defense was doo-doo. So not being able to stop Iowa State, that was not surprising. But yeah, I can't be throwing those interceptions. Vandy 20, Kentucky 13. I said it. I was worried. I was worried before the game that Vandy 13.5 I thought was ridiculous any week, Vandy versus Kentucky, just the way we've seen Vandy play this year. But the fact that they were coming off such a big win, there is always that hangover effect that you do worry about, because look at Vandy. They took advantage of that with Bama. Now, Bama ended up struggling this week, so maybe it really wasn't a hangover. Maybe Bama's just going through some shit. But I was a little worried that Vandy might have that hangover. But they didn't. Let's fucking go, Vandy. I'm so happy to see Vandy doing well. It's nice to see when a bottom dweller has a good season. And they are two wins away from bowl eligibility. Didn't think that was going to happen this season. Honestly, I thought Clark Lee was on the hot seat. And he has definitely done enough to keep his job, at least in my opinion. Now, if they lose out the rest of the season, maybe not, but who knows? I think they've done Jerry Kill. Honestly, that's who deserves to be the coach, but Jerry Kill and Diego Pavia just taking over the SEC. All right, let's get into the late night games. Minnesota Minute. I was nervous for this game. As a Minnesota fan, you look at this game and you should win this game easily, but you've also seen some dumb shit, so you get a little nervous. Like I said, on paper, this is a game that Minnesota should have easily won, and instead they were trailing 10-0 at half, which doesn't put a lot of faith in the team when you see that. But they came back, so I'll give them credit for that. 21-7 in the second half, enough to win the game, so I'm not going to complain about a win. This was a Max Brosmer heavy game, and that is not what I expected. I was very wrong on this game. I figured he would be not utilized very much in the second half of this game because Minnesota would have control. Minnesota's running backs combined for 19 carries for 48 yards. And in case you didn't know, that's terrible. Absolutely terrible. Max Brosmer instead he just dinked and dunked all over this UCLA defense. 5.2 yards per attempt, 7.4 per completion. That is not a team that's airing out the ball very much at all. That is dinking and dunking to a T. Now, I did say Brosmer would be completing 75% of his passes in this game. Instead, he completed 70%, close enough. But I definitely did not think they would be throwing the ball that much. But Minnesota's offensive line, this was supposed to be the strength of the team, and I think they need help because 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and 2.5 yards per carry is abysmal. That is so bad, and against one of the worst teams in the country, that's even worse. And Garbers, despite throwing 3 interceptions, kind of was thrown all over this Gophers defense. Now, he is one of those quarterbacks who makes a lot of bad throws, too. So him having a lot of yards is not necessarily a concern because he's one to do that, but also throw 4 interceptions in a game. Threw 3 this one. Now, granted, I'll give him this. The last one, it was a time expires, Hail Mary, throw to the end zone, hope for the best. I don't really count that interception against him. But the other 2 were very deadly. One was while they were driving deep into Gopher territory, and he throws that interception, and the other gave Minnesota a short field, which they were able to capitalize on and score a touchdown. I didn't really talk about him last week because everybody was already talking about him, and I wanted to give flowers to the guys who are not getting talked about as much. But Coy Parrish is special. He really is. I didn't think he was going to get this much playing time this season. I'm glad he is. He is fun to watch, and I am so excited for his Minnesota career. Even if he is a 3 and done and out of here and he doesn't stay for a senior season, I'm so pumped. Minnesota always produces great safeties, and Coy Parrish is going to be... he is special already. He's going to be even more special by the time his career is over. In the end, this game should not have been this close, but I'm not going to complain about a win. It is what it is. Let's go Gophers. We are not dead. Formerly on the dead list. Preview for that, we are no longer on the dead list. The other late night game I wanted to talk about, Kansas State 31, Colorado 27. Called it, nailed it, told you exactly how the Kansas State needed to win this game. They needed to run the ball down Colorado's throat, control the clock, and keep that Colorado offense on the sideline. The biggest key was obviously going to be Avery Johnson, and which Avery were you going to get? BYU Avery, or were you going to get Oklahoma State or Arizona Avery? And Kansas State did all of that. Time of possession was won by 10 minutes, 35-25, I think on the dot too. Running backs were averaging 6.3 yards per carry, which you want to do against this Colorado defense, and Avery Johnson played well. Had 1 interception, but played well. We knew Colorado was going to score on that Kansas State defense because that Kansas State pass defense is doo-doo, and what does Colorado like to do? Throw the ball. They threw it for nearly 400 yards, but the issues with this offense have not changed. That offensive line is doo-doo. Running backs ran it 10 times for 21 yards. 10 times for 21 yards. That is, first of all, you only ran it 10 times, and second, it was for 21 yards. And they allowed 6 sacks. I don't know how much of those sacks are on Shadur or how much of those are on the offensive line, but Colorado sucks and Kansas State is very good, and they came in there with a game plan, executed it good enough to win this game. Colorado sucks. All right, my dead list. We got 2 official changes to the dead list. Minnesota has officially been removed from the dead list. They are still on the radar, but they are off the dead list. They are kind of turning it around, and they're off the dead list. Arizona, though, on the other hand, last week they were put on dead watch, and after their terrible loss to BYU this weekend, they have officially joined the dead list. No longer on watch. They're officially on the dead list. There were people going into the season who were saying that Brent Brennan was walking into the best situation of any coach when it came to the roster-wise, which absolutely not. Kalen DeBoer was, even though he lost so much. There was just, what a lie, first of all. I was not high on Arizona going into the season. I had them going 5-7, and honestly, that seems like it could happen. They're on the dead list. I don't know why people were so on them. I know Noah Fafita blew it up last year, but I don't think he's that great. I think he's got his 1 receiver, and after that, he's got nothing. Arizona, you are on the dead list. Michigan State, not Michigan State. I mean, I guess they're dead, yes, but they never even had to be put on there. They just started the season there. Michigan is still on dead watch. They didn't play this weekend. They're still on dead watch. But Washington and USC, they have been added to dead watch. Washington started the season all right. USC started ranked, was up to 11. They have all been added to dead watch. My top 25, nothing too crazy. I had Ohio State dropping from 2 to 5. Ole Miss dropping from 9 to 15, which that might be generous. They should probably be close to like 20. I understand that, and I will listen to that argument. I just think they do still have a lot of talent. Another loss, they're out, though, for sure. But they should be probably closer to 20. I'll give you that. But Texas 1, Oregon 2, Penn State 4, or 3, Miami 4. I don't know why I just jumped over 3. Ohio State 5, Georgia 6, Clemson 7, Iowa State 8, Bama 9, Tennessee 10. I did drop both of them just because not great wins. Notre Dame 11, LSU 12, BYU 13. Could argue that I should probably bump BYU up a little more, but BYU 13. Texas A&M 14. Like I said, I dropped Ole Miss to 15. Again, they probably could be closer to 20 or later or higher, but I have them at 15. Boise State 16. K-State 17. Indiana 18. Mizzou 19. Hurts me to have Mizzou at 19. I want them out of the top 25. Pitt at 20. Illinois 21. SMU 22. Now I'm putting a little bit of respect on the military because they are undefeated. I got Navy at 23, Army at 24, and I just threw Michigan in at 25. I don't really believe that they should be there, but I also can't make too big of arguments for anybody to replace them at the moment. So Michigan at 25. All right, time to get into my bets from this weekend. For starters, I just want to say positive attitude, winning mindset. We're going to turn this around. I was 2-3 this week. Now, my bets as a whole did pretty well. My 5 faves, not really. 2-3, not ideal. 17-24 on the season, down 8.5 units, hitting at a 41.5% rate. Not great. But on the bright side, the Power 4 Moneyline Parlay did hit for the first time this year. 1-6, only down 2.5 units on that one. So that's a plus. That's positive attitude, winning mindset. We're moving this forward. We're turning it around. My buddy, on the other hand, still continues to kick my ass. 3-1 this week, 17-7 overall, plus 9.5 units, 9.68 to be exact. Hitting at a 70% rate. Just kicking my ass. He's hit 2 parlays this year as well. Parlays are 2 and 4, up 5.5 units, 5.6 to be exact. Positive attitude, winning mindset. I will turn this around. We're at the halfway point of the season. We're gonna forget this first half. We're gonna start at 0, 1 week at a time, turning this around. I'm gonna kick his ass, and then I'm gonna be positive. We're gonna be up units by the end of the season. All right. Time for my final and favorite segment. Dude, are you high? Dude, are you high? There was quite a few things I probably could have picked this weekend. Kirby Smart, honestly, could have probably won this twice, two weeks in a row. Once I could have done for just even allowing another player to get arrested and just allowing to let your team run rampant. But I really could have got him for was, I don't know if you saw this, but he lost his shit, ran up to a ref, but absolutely shoved a Mississippi State player out of his way. They showed, somebody put out a slow-mo of him doing it, and it doesn't look that egregious. But when you watch it full speed, he just absolutely shoves this Mississippi State player. And the ref was standing right there, watched it, and didn't do shit. I don't know if it's because it's Kirby Smart and he's the new Nick Saban, so they're going to respect him or what. But Jeff Lebby had every right to run across that field and just beat the shit out of Kirby Smart. That is like an unwritten rule with coaches. You do not touch another team's, the other coach's players. You don't. You put your hands on them, and that's grounds for getting having the shit beat out of you. I'm not going to have Kirby Smart win it, okay? 2 weeks in a row, I just can't do it. He could easily win it, though. And some are going to say that this is a cheat. And that you can't pick this one because, dude, he's actually high. You can't pick this guy. You got to pick guys who are not high, but you're questioning, are you actually high? You can't pick a dude who's high. But I'm going to, and that person is me. I won, dude, are you high? Because I just had some outrageous takes going into this week, most notably my stat how Mike Loxley is 15-34 against Big Ten teams, and he basically cannot win against the Big Ten. And then I went ahead and said, Maryland's going to win this weekend against Northwestern. Disregard that stat that I just said. They win, and they got absolutely fucked. 37-10. Dude, are you high? I am, but I'm not that high. I should not have been that high. What the fuck was that? What can you do? Thanks for joining me this week. It was an ugly weekend of football for some teams, but it was fun to watch. It was a good weekend. We are officially halfway through the season. It's sad to think about, but there's a lot of good games coming up, and I am so excited for this next week. So I will talk to you guys on Friday to preview Week 8.